All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know a lot of people watch these on the recording later, so we'll just get started with who we have and people can catch up on the recording on YouTube. So thanks to those of you who joined live. Thanks to anybody who's going to be watching later on the recording. As you can hear, I've apparently come down with something and I sound like a frog today, so apologies in advance, but we'll try to get through this either way. So just a reminder, this slide, it's always my first slide for the meeting, but just a reminder about what we're trying to get done as a group. And I think we're making great progress, which is build this amazing community of AI and LLM security experts. Just watching all the activity over on the Slack and actually the artifacts that we're starting to produce, I think we're making great progress there. In terms of becoming this foundational work for other standards, it's really fun to see that taking off. John posted on the channel today that he had a last minute emergency and won't be able to make it, but I'll talk a little bit about what he's been doing, engaging with some of the standards bodies, and I think we're actually making great progress there. And then really, guiding the industry and driving discussion. And so I think that we're really on track there for what we're trying to do. So I wanted to talk for a minute about our roadmap. So I posted to the channel a week or so ago a draft roadmap. Done a little bit of refining on this, basically this way. Had some discussion with a few folks in the last few days. And we'll talk about the reception to the 1.0 document, which I think has been really positive. I was expecting to see more egregious errors and bugs in the document as we put it out there. We haven't had them. There's minor misspellings, there's wording things. I think the time and effort that we would put into a 1.0.1 release just isn't worth it. So we're going to skip that. People seem quite happy with the 1.0 release. We're going to focus our efforts on driving the localizations. So thanks to Emmanuel, who's working on our Portuguese. And Mike also told me last minute, some of you saw he posted on the Slack channel that he was recently laid off. He has a job interview today, so we wish Mike the best on that. But he's been driving the localization program. He has a number of them, on the order of about a dozen, that he has people signed up to produce the localized versions for. So I think we're going to focus on getting out those localized versions and then the 1.1 minor release. And that will be one of the topics for today's meeting. And then in parallel, ramping up for V2. So in terms of our activity, I kind of expected it, but we've had a lot of people join since the 1.0 release. So in the approximately 2 weeks since we released 1.0, we've had over 100 people join the Slack channel. So lots of activity, lots of attention, lots of press coverage. We'll talk about that. It doesn't look like Autumn made it to the call, but I will cover that out in some detail in terms of what we've gotten there. And we actually are expecting a lot more this week and next to come out. The other thing you may have seen me starting to do on the Slack channel in the last day or so is assigning some additional core team positions. Going to be doing some more work on that over the next few days. But thanks to those of you who filled out the volunteer survey, that's really given me the basis for who's willing to step up and lead some of these things, as well as who's willing to be in hopefully some sub-working groups on these. So we'll talk about that. In terms of the reception for 1.0, lots and lots of press coverage. It's been amazing to see that. Very mainstream, at least for IT, press coverage with things like the Register and SD Times. I don't know if anybody else likes reading the Register, but I like their snarky IT headlines, and I'm glad that we got a fun, snarky IT headline for our project. This is just a smattering of them. The other thing that I know we have coming is there are a number of vendors who have employees working on the project who are going to be coming out, actually who have come out with or will be coming out with blogs supporting the project shortly. So contrast where I work, we came out with an announcement, both a blog supporting the project as well as announcing we've started adding some features to our AppSec tools to try and target some of the LLM top 10 vulnerabilities. Kynos, where John S. works, they put out a great blog. John put me on as a co-author, but he wrote 99% of it. Really good blog. We're also expecting some things from the likes of Cohere and AWS, so some big heavy hitters in both the LLM and the cloud space coming in to support the project. So hoping to see those in the next week or two. So let's see, talked about PR, standards updates. What I know from talking to John is that he's engaged with NIST, some standards bodies in the UK and EMEA. And we had a lot of people in the volunteer survey say that they were willing to help with the standards work, which I think is great. So given that John had already jumped in and started engaging with some of these teams, I've appointed him the lead, but he's going to be setting up a sub channel on Slack for people who are engaged or willing to engage with standards bodies. There's a lot of them out there. So standards and regulatory will be one of the things that we'll be going after and getting engaged with. John told me some of the feedback when he went out to engage with these expert groups was really positive because they have had AI on their radar. In some cases, they've been looking at adding AI guidance in the last couple of years. And the wave of attention to LLMs just derailed them. And a lot of the guidance that they were planning on putting out all of a sudden seemed dated. They didn't know where to go for better guidance for LLMs. And they've been really excited to engage with our project, and just reading our materials, they were really excited to have us on board and engaging with them. So I think we will see some really positive uptake. And we already have seen that from a couple places in the US government. One of the reports from the intelligence community referencing our work. There was another one from, I want to say, Department of Commerce. Anyway, we're starting to see that already just from the very early days. On the design front, Mike has been continuing to push forward on getting the website put together. That's been a heavy lift. I'm hoping to see that ready for full-blown sharing in the next few weeks. Mike tells me he's sort of re-accelerated there and making progress, so he'll keep us all updated. So we have that LLMtop10.com site. It's going to be really great, and he's put in a lot of work up to and including getting a contractor on board to help him with coding. So that's going to be pretty great, and I'd expect to see that coming shortly, and that'll be a great resource for us as well. So team leads. I've gone out and looked at who volunteered for things. I've been looking at people who are very active to tap them to be sub leads on some of these jobs. So one of the things that I wanted to put in place was a style guide. I think a lot of the time during the first couple months, we weren't just debating what should be the top 10 entries or what was the best way to mitigate risks. We were debating things around style and what should we call things, all the way down to how should we label bullets and reference URLs. So there's going to be some parts of this style guide that will be around, let's call it English usage, and some parts that will be around things that will accelerate the layout work that Mike and the design team will be doing in terms of getting us unified with the teams building the entries. So Jason's volunteered to step up and take lead on that, collaborate with the design team. He'll be setting up a sub channel on that. Anybody please jump in there if you want to. I think that's a great way to accelerate our work. We'll have a dedicated topic today on V1.1, but Ads has volunteered to step up on that. He has consistently been one of the most active people on the channel since the very early days of the project. And having been the lead for 1.0 myself. I know this is a lot of work, so I was looking for somebody who had time and energy to invest in it. He was super enthusiastic to do it. Other thing that I really wanted to see was, I know that we have people who are who live on Slack, who wired their Slack into their working life, where the OWASP Slack is something that they check frequently. We have a lot of other people who, frankly, we know do not. So Will has volunteered to step up and produce a email newsletter for us, where we can keep sort of an extended team aware of what we're doing and pull them in as required. I think this will be a great way to help scale out the project and, again, keep attention focused on it. So Will has been looking at various services to set up these email newsletters. I think he's selected one. He'll also be setting up a group, I'm sure, to help with production of the newsletter, so be on the lookout for that. There are a few more positions that I am starting to engage in discussions with filling. One of the really crucial ones will be around leading the group, looking at how do we do additional data gathering for 2.0. This was one of the things we knew going into 1.0 is we were going to do a fast sprint. We were going to depend on the wisdom of the crowd that we built to come up with good guidance. But top 10s at OWASP generally depend on data for, actual vulnerabilities and exploits, and draw from different sources in terms of doing the rankings for these things. And I would like to get us to that point. I think we are starting to see enough real world security incidents with LLMs that we can start to shift that way. So I did have a lot of people volunteer for this position. Over the next week, I'm going to be looking at appointing a lead, and then building a working group around that, where we can sort of figure out our data gathering process and how we're going to do some of the ranking in parallel with producing 1.0, so that when we jump into the full-blown project of developing 2.0, that we're ready to go. So be on the lookout for leads going on the main channel, announcing sub channels around some of these projects. Please feel free to go in, hop in. We already do have a sub channel for the diagramming project. And in fact, I think we have general agreement on the first diagram that we'll produce, which is kind of a summary of where the top 10 plug in to the overall threat surface for a typical LLM application. I think that's a great start. We'll definitely be doing more. One other thing, I think 3 of the entries in the top 10, the lead who was running those for 1.0 has told me he doesn't have time over the next couple months to contribute due to his day job. So either ads or I will be looking to recruit some replacement entry leads for those, and we'll announce that on the main channel in terms of what's opened up, and be looking for volunteers to take on one or more of those. So in terms of 1.0, my vision for this is that this would be the same top 10 items. I have seen already some discussion that maybe we want to collapse a couple of these, and I'm certainly open to that. And again, ads will be leading. But primarily this would be entry cleanup, updated references. I mean, things are moving so fast, and we see so much coming out around better understanding some of these vulnerabilities, as well as better understanding how to mitigate them. So I think updating the references and the language will be key. We'll run this over a couple short sprints. We'll do this so that we can get it out. I'm looking at, again, we produced the first list in about 2 months. I think we should produce the 1.1 in about the same amount of time. I think this will be one where we can add 1 or more diagrams to the project. I think it was late to add them for 1.0, but we'll have had time to bake them and coalesce them. So I think we can add that to the document. We've been pushing people to add feedback via GitHub issues, and we've started to see some of those come in. So the leads will be looking at those issues. If people do want to file additional issues, that's a great way to get feedback out there in a durable, easy to track way. But we also will continue to leverage those Slack channels for each entry. So anybody on the expert team, think about using one of those two ways to get your feedback in. And I'll be working with ads sort of this week and early next week to get together some clear guidance around the sprints that we'll run for 1.1, and we'll announce that on the main channel. So I'll just pause here before we get into 2.0. Any questions or comments on 1.1 and the process there? Okay, see people shaking their heads who are on camera, so I'm going to assume that we're good to go. Oh, I see we got a thing in the chat. All right, Eugene says all good. Cool. All right, data gathering for 2.0. I think this will be sort of one of the biggest step functions in our project, is really shifting how we're doing this from being totally expert driven to trying to pull in some more quantitative data sources outside of just expert voting. Again, I do have a list of people who volunteered on this, so I'll be looking at the list. I'll be looking at people who've been active and then contacting them and seeing if they're willing to step up and lead this. I think this will be a time commitment, but I think it could be really fun. And I think we do have a lot of great data sources that are appearing out there that do include data about actual LLM exploits or vulnerabilities in the wild that we can start to use for 2.0. So I thought I would just pause here. Anybody have suggestions or other discussion topics around this? Let's see. Eugene says he doesn't have a mic, but he says data equals number of papers, research interest, number of incidents, and attacker interest. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely some of what we're looking at. And I see Apurva raising their hand.
Hello, hi, good morning, everyone. So this is Apurva Mohan, and I just joined the group. I recently came across this group, and I started reviewing 1.0. I think it's very great, and I just wanted to volunteer for supporting this activity. And
Great.
working in my organization in securing AI and ML DevOps pipelines. So I have some exposure to that, but I'm more on the security side, not on the AI side.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it's one of the cool things about this group is that we've somehow managed to attract people from the security side. It's not surprising given that we started at OWASP, but I think we've also gotten a lot of great AI, and this is one of the few places where we're seeing a real synthesis of the two, which is really cool. So thanks for volunteering to help on that. I'm sure you will get drafted.
My pleasure.
Anybody else comments on 2.0, ideas for how to attack this? Okay. Expect to see some more discussion on this in the channel. I'll be reaching out. If anybody on the call, I think I had at least a dozen people volunteer to lead this, which is awesome. So I will be kind of digging through that. But if you're on this call and you want to lead it, feel free to DM me and tell me that you want to. I'll start talking to you first. Okay. All right. So next meeting will be in 2 weeks. I did get some questions about this. If everybody remembers, we deferred last week due to primarily due to Black Hat. A lot of people in the group were there, given that we have people in the security space, and also that we had a lot of our LLM experts were also there for the LLM hacking events, which sound like they were super cool. Actually, maybe we can get somebody who was involved in those to come next time and give us a little bit of blow by blow on what happened and what came out of it, because those sound super interesting. So yeah, the next meeting will be in 2 weeks. So we kind of just shifted the cadence out we'll still be every other week, but it'll be off by a week from where it was previously. So I'll be clear to publish those.
Steve,
yeah.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
I've had a few people reach out to me that want to be involved, including our chief security officer and a few others. How do I what's the best way to get them involved?
So That's a great question. I think that our default way of getting people involved is hop into the community that we've built, which is based around the Slack channel and the GitHub site. I think the other thing is for people who are maybe not wanting to be in it as much day to day, setting up sort of the email newsletter and things, having people get subscribed to that might be a great thing as we get that set up in the next couple of weeks. The other thing is if we do have execs, we have Sandy on here who's a CISO herself, but for execs who want to be involved and have a particular interest that they'd like to be involved in, feel free to let me know what capacity they might want to help in, and we'll figure out how to leverage that with senior folks where we may be able to leverage more in terms of what they have in terms of resources or reputation. So let me know how they want to help and we'll figure out how to engage them. That make sense, Bob? If you're answering Bob, you're on mute. All right. Anybody else? Questions, comments, suggestions? All right. Well, I'm just going to pause it here. Thanks to everybody who joined today. Again, congratulations to you and the whole group on the reception on the 1.0 release. I will say this, my own personal posts around this, between my post on LinkedIn and my post on Twitter, has been reposted more than 300 times, has had 800 likes or other similar reactions on it, and over 40,000 views. We've had a lot of other influencers in the security space who posted their own instead of just reposting mine that I know have had hundreds of reposts. So just the social media attention out there is probably 100,000 plus people have seen at least the reference to the document. And I think we've had countless downloads and views and reads. So I think we have made a real impact in the way that the industry is thinking about these issues and really opened a lot of eyeballs to it. So we're in a great place in terms of momentum. Again, mainstream press coverage. I think we're expecting to see supporting blogs from a lot of mainstream, larger, important players in the security space, cloud space, and AI space over the coming weeks. So I think we're in a great place in terms of momentum. So this is the time to kind of take a deep breath, congratulate yourself on getting out 1.0 and being a founding member of the group, and let's lean into 1.1 and 2.0. And for those of you who are new, you're definitely welcome. We welcome as much time and energy as you're able to put into the project. And I do get a lot of questions from people around, how do I get more deeply involved? How do I get to be on the core team? Just go be active, wade in, start to give your opinions. That's the way you get visible on the project, and you'll get tapped to do more and more. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.